The crack of a lightning bolt split the night sky as Olivia Zimmerman clutched her swollen belly, a sharp pain tearing through her body. The abandoned homestead she'd found refuge in offered little protection from the howling storm, its weathered boards groaning against the wind's fury. She was alone, miles from civilization, and her baby was coming. Arizona Territory, 1882. Olivia had fled east after her husband's murder, desperate to escape the memories and the dangers that had stolen him from her. She hadn't known she was carrying his child when she joined the westward-bound wagon train 3 months ago. By the time she realized, turning back wasn't an option. 2 weeks ago, a band of outlaws had attacked their caravan. In the chaos, she'd been separated from the others, left to wander the unforgiving landscape on foot, her water supply dwindling as rapidly as her hope. "Please," she whispered to the empty room, "please help me through this." Another contraction gripped her, and Olivia bit down on her knuckles to keep from screaming. She'd made a bed of sorts from her tattered dress and the single blanket she'd managed to salvage. The pain intensified as hours passed, her strength fading with each push. Outside, the storm continued its relentless assault, rain hammering against the tin roof. By dawn, exhaustion had nearly claimed her when, with one final, desperate effort, her child entered the world. But the cabin remained eerily quiet. No cry. No sound at all from the tiny blue-tinged infant in her arms. "No," Olivia sobbed, rubbing the baby's back frantically. "Please breathe. Please cry for me." The sound of approaching hoofbeats barely registered through her panic. The door burst open, and a tall figure filled the threshold, water streaming from his duster and wide-brimmed hat. "Hello," a deep voice called out. "Anyone in here needs shelter from—" The man stopped short, taking in the scene before him. Without hesitation, he strode across the room and knelt beside Olivia. "The baby," she pleaded weakly. "My baby won't cry." With gentle hands, he took the silent infant, examining it quickly before turning it over and delivering 2 soft pats to its back. When nothing happened, he wiped the tiny mouth clear and breathed gently against the baby's face. "Cry, little one," he murmured softly. "I'm here to hear it." For a moment that stretched like eternity, nothing happened. Then, as if responding to his voice, the infant gave a tiny gasp followed by a loud, healthy wail that filled the cabin. Olivia collapsed back in relief, tears streaming down her face as the stranger placed the crying baby girl in her arms. "Thank you," she whispered, looking up at her savior for the first time. His face was weathered by sun and wind, but kind blue eyes gazed back at her from beneath the shadow of his hat. A faint scar ran along his jawline, disappearing into several days' worth of stubble. "Preston Abernathy," he said, tipping his hat. "Looks like I arrived just in time." "Olivia Zimmerman," she replied, her voice barely audible above her daughter's continued cries. "And this is Faith." Preston smiled. "A fitting name." He glanced around the dilapidated cabin. "This place isn't fit for a new mother and child. My ranch is half a day's ride from here. If you're willing to trust me, I can take you there until you're strong enough to travel on." Olivia hesitated only briefly. The alternative was certain death for both her and her newborn daughter. "We'd be grateful for your help, Mr. Abernathy." "Just Preston, madam." He moved efficiently around the cabin, gathering her meager belongings. "Rest a bit. I'll prepare my horse for travel and see if I can fashion some kind of sling to keep the little one secure against you." When Preston stepped outside, Olivia looked down at Faith, now quieted to soft whimpers against her chest. "He saved you," she whispered, "and maybe us both." True to his word, Preston returned with a makeshift carrier crafted from his spare shirt. With gentle efficiency, he helped Olivia to her feet, supporting her weight when her knees threatened to buckle. The pain of movement after childbirth was excruciating, but she bit her lip and endured it silently. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving behind a washed clean landscape under a brightening sky. Preston's horse, a magnificent chestnut stallion, stood patiently waiting. With careful movements, Preston helped Olivia mount before swinging up behind her, one strong arm circling her waist to keep her and Faith steady. "It's a few hours' ride," he said close to her ear. "Lean back against me if you need to rest." Despite her determination to remain alert, exhaustion soon pulled Olivia into a fitful sleep, her body swaying with the horse's steady gait while Preston held her securely. She woke occasionally, checking on Faith before drifting off again, trusting this stranger in a way she hadn't trusted anyone since her husband's death. By midday, the landscape had changed from scrubby desert to rolling grassland. Ahead, a modest ranch house came into view, smoke curling from its chimney. A split-rail fence enclosed a corral where several horses grazed, and beyond it stretched pasture land dotted with cattle. "Welcome to the AA," Preston said as they approached. "It's not much, but it's home." As they neared the house, a door opened and an older woman emerged, wiping her hands on her apron. Her silver-streaked hair was pulled back in a severe bun, but her face softened with concern when she saw them. Preston Abernathy. "What in heaven's name, Martha, this lady needs help," Preston called out. "She just had a baby in that old Anderson place during the storm." Martha's expression transformed instantly. "Bring her in, quickly." The next hours passed in a blur for Olivia. Martha, Preston's housekeeper since his parents had passed, took charge with impressive efficiency. She prepared a warm bath, provided clean clothes, and examined both Olivia and Faith with the practiced hands of someone who had delivered many babies in her time. "You're lucky," she told Olivia as she helped her into a freshly made bed in the guest room. "Both you and the little one, if Preston hadn't found you." "How did he find us?" Olivia asked, cradling Faith against her chest. Martha smiled. "That boy has always had a sixth sense about folks in trouble. Says he was headed to Tucson when something told him to check the old Anderson homestead. Said he couldn't explain it." Later that evening, after Martha had retired to her quarters at the back of the house, Preston knocked softly on the bedroom door. When Olivia called for him to enter, he stepped in hesitantly, hat in hand. "I wanted to check on you both before turning in," he said, his eyes moving to Faith sleeping peacefully in a makeshift cradle beside the bed. "We're doing well, thanks to you," Olivia replied. "Mr. Abernathy Preston, I don't know how to repay your kindness." He shook his head. "No need for that. Anyone would have done the same." "No," Olivia said firmly. "Not anyone would have. The world has shown me that much." Preston's eyes clouded briefly. "I reckon you're right about that." He moved closer to the cradle, looking down at Faith with a gentle expression. "She's a beautiful child, strong too to have survived such a birth." "Like her father," Olivia said softly, pain lacing her words. Preston didn't press for details, and she was grateful. Instead, he simply nodded. "You both should rest." "Martha says you're welcome to stay as long as you need to recover." "Thank you," Olivia murmured. "Just until I'm strong enough to continue my journey." Something flickered across Preston's face, disappointment perhaps, but he merely nodded again. "Good night, Mrs. Zimmerman." "Olivia, please." A smile touched his lips. "Good night, Olivia." Over the following days, Olivia regained her strength gradually. Faith thrived under Martha's experienced care and Olivia's devoted attention. Preston kept his distance, respecting her privacy, but Olivia often caught him watching them from afar, a wistful expression on his face. A week after their arrival, Olivia ventured outside for the first time, carrying Faith wrapped snugly against her chest. She found Preston mending a fence near the house, his sleeves rolled up to reveal tanned, muscular forearms. "Fine day," he commented when he noticed her approach. "How are you feeling?" "Better," Olivia replied. strong enough to help with some chores if you'll allow it. I can't keep accepting your hospitality without contributing something in return. Preston straightened, wiping his brow. You're a guest, not hired help. Nevertheless, I'd like to earn my keep while I'm here. She hesitated. And I need to know more about the nearest town. I'll need to find work soon. Preston's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. Clearwater's about 15 miles east, small but decent place. They've got a general store, boarding house, saloon. He paused. What kind of work are you looking for? Anything honest, Olivia answered. I can cook, clean, so. I taught school back east before. She trailed off, unwilling to delve into painful memories. Preston studied her for a moment. Clearwater's school shut down last year when the teacher left. They've been looking for a replacement, but no one wants to come this far west. Hope flickered in Olivia's chest. A teaching position would be perfect. It doesn't pay much, Preston warned, and the accommodations are basic at best. I'm not afraid of simplicity or hard work, Mr. Abernathy. His smile returned. No, I don't suppose you are. He gestured toward the house. Why don't we discuss it over dinner? Martha's making her famous stew tonight. That evening, after Faith had been fed and settled, Olivia joined Preston and Martha at the kitchen table. The stew was indeed exceptional, rich with vegetables and tender beef. As they ate, Preston outlined what he knew about Clearwater and its needs. Town's growing, he explained. Mostly ranching families, some minors. About 20 children of school age, last I heard. Martha snorted. More like 30 now. The Hendersons just had twins, and the Rileys took in their nieces and nephews after that awful influenza outbreak. Olivia listened attentively, her mind already filling with plans. When could I go to town to inquire about the position? Preston and Martha exchanged glances. I could take you day after tomorrow, Preston offered. Got some business at the bank anyway. Thank you, Olivia said. That would be perfect. Later, as Olivia prepared for bed, a soft knock sounded at her door. She opened it to find Martha holding a bundle of fabric. Thought you might like these, the older woman said, extending the bundle. My daughter's dresses. She's gone to California now, married a merchant there. These should fit you better than my hand-me-downs. Olivia accepted the gift with genuine gratitude. Martha, you've already done so much. Nonsense, Martha interrupted. Can't have you meeting the town council in patched clothing. Her expression softened. Besides, it does these garments good to be worn again instead of gathering dust in a trunk. Olivia unfolded the top dress, a simple but well-made blue calico with delicate white piping. It's beautiful, Martha nodded approvingly. Blue suits you. She turned to leave but paused at the door. He's a good man, you know, Preston. Caught off guard by the sudden shift in conversation, Olivia could only nod. Lost his parents to typhoid when he was 22. Brother died in the war. Been alone ever since, except for me hovering about. Martha's keen eyes studied Olivia. Just thought you should know. Before Olivia could respond, Martha was gone, leaving her holding the dresses and wondering at the housekeeper's intent. The following day passed quickly, with Olivia helping Martha with household chores while caring for Faith. Preston remained busy with ranch work, returning only briefly for meals. During dinner, he seemed preoccupied, responding to conversation with short, distracted answers. Everything all right? Olivia finally asked as Martha cleared the table. Preston looked up, seeming surprised by the question. Yes, just thinking about tomorrow. We should leave early if we want to get back before dark. Of course, Olivia agreed, though she sensed there was more he wasn't saying. That night, Faith was unusually fussy, refusing to settle. Olivia paced the room with her, singing softly and patting her back. When even this failed to soothe the infant, Olivia decided fresh air might help. Wrapping Faith securely, she stepped onto the porch, breathing in the cool night air. The sky was a vast canvas of stars, more than she had ever seen in the smog-filled eastern cities. The beauty of it momentarily stole her breath. As she stood gazing upward, the sound of a guitar drifted from around the side of the house, gentle, melancholy notes floating on the night breeze. Curious, Olivia followed the music, finding Preston seated on a bench near the corral, his fingers moving skillfully across the strings of a battered guitar. He didn't notice her immediately, lost in the melody, his expression more open and vulnerable than she had yet seen it. Faith chose that moment to let out a particularly loud wail, and Preston's head jerked up, the music stopping abruptly. "I'm sorry to disturb you," Olivia said quickly. "Faith was restless, and I thought the night air might help." Preston set the guitar aside and stood. "No need for apologies." "Is she all right? Just colicky, I think." Olivia bounced Faith gently. "Your music is lovely." A hint of color touched Preston's cheeks, just something to pass the time. "Would you?" Olivia hesitated, then pushed forward. "Would you continue?" The music seemed to calm her a bit. Preston looked surprised but nodded, retrieving his guitar. As he began to play again, Olivia sat beside him on the bench, Faith cradled against her. The melody was a gentle folk tune, one Olivia vaguely recognized from her childhood. Gradually, Faith's cries subsided to whimpers, then to the even breathing of sleep. Still, Preston played, and Olivia remained, reluctant to break the peaceful moment. "My father taught me," Preston said softly when the song ended. "Said music was the only civilized thing about the frontier." "He was talented then," Olivia replied, "and so are you." Preston smiled faintly. "He was a dreamer, came west with grand plans of building an empire. Reality was somewhat less glamorous. He strummed a few quiet chords. But he never lost his belief that beauty could be found anywhere if you looked for it. A wise man." "Yes," Preston's gaze drifted to Faith. "She's asleep." Olivia nodded. "Your music worked its magic." They sat in companionable silence for several minutes before Preston spoke again. "Olivia, there's something I should tell you before we go to town tomorrow." His voice had grown serious. "There's talk of trouble brewing. The Stockton gang has been raiding ranches to the north." Olivia tensed. "Outlaws, the worst kind. They don't just steal cattle. They—" He glanced at her, then away. "They've hurt people, killed some." Fear knotted in Olivia's stomach. "Are they near Clearwater?" "Not yet, but Marshal Dawson thinks they're moving this way." Preston's fingers tightened on the guitar. "I just want you to be aware. Clearwater's generally peaceful, but these are uncertain times." Olivia looked down at Faith's sleeping face. She had fled east to escape violence, only to find it following her west. "Thank you for telling me," she said quietly. Preston nodded, his expression troubled. "I'm not trying to frighten you, just want you to have all the facts before making decisions." "I appreciate that." Olivia stood carefully, cradling Faith. "We should get some rest if we're leaving early." Preston rose as well, walking her back to the house in silence. At her door, he paused. "Olivia," he began, then stopped, seeming to struggle with his words. "Yes," he shook his head slightly. "Nothing, sleep well." As Olivia laid Faith in her cradle and prepared for bed, she found her thoughts returning to Preston, the gentleness of his hands when he saved Faith, the haunting notes of his guitar, the concern in his eyes as he warned her about potential dangers. Something stirred within her, a feeling she had thought buried with her husband. It frightened her. Morning arrived with a brilliant sunrise painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Olivia dressed in Martha's daughter's blue dress, surprised at how well it fit. After feeding Faith and preparing a bag with necessities for the baby, she made her way to the kitchen where Martha was already busy cooking. "Good morning," Olivia greeted, settling Faith in the crook of her arm to accept the cup of coffee Martha offered. "Morning," Martha replied, eyeing her approvingly. "That dress does suit you. Preston's already seeing to the wagon." Olivia sipped her coffee. "Martha, may I ask you something?" "Course." These outlaws Preston mentioned the Stockton gang. How dangerous are they really? Martha's expression grew grave. Bad enough that Preston's been sleeping with a rifle by his bed since they hit the Morrison place last month. She cracked eggs into a skillet with more force than necessary. Burned the house with the family inside. Only the youngest boy survived, and that's because he was hiding in the barn. Horror washed over Olivia. Why would they do such a thing? Some men don't need reasons for cruelty, Martha said grimly. They just need opportunity. She turned from the stove to face Olivia directly. But don't you worry. Preston won't let anything happen to you or that baby. He's tougher than he looks. Before Olivia could respond, the kitchen door opened and Preston entered, bringing with him the scent of horses and morning air. "Wagon's ready whenever you are," he announced, then paused, his eyes taking in Olivia's appearance. "You look." He cleared his throat. "That's a nice dress." "Thank you," Olivia replied, a warmth spreading through her that had nothing to do with the coffee. It was a kind gift from Martha. Martha busied herself at the stove, a small smile playing at her lips. "Breakfast is ready. You'll need your strength for the journey." The ride to Clearwater was pleasantly uneventful. Preston handled the team with easy competence, keeping the wagon at a steady pace over the rough terrain. Olivia sat beside him, Faith sleeping peacefully in her arms, protected from the sun by a small canopy Preston had rigged on the wagon seat. As they traveled, Preston pointed out landmarks and shared stories of the area where the best hunting was to be found, which water sources were reliable year-round, how to read the clouds to predict weather changes. Olivia listened attentively, filing away information that might prove useful in her new life. "You know a great deal about surviving out here," she observed after he explained how to find north without a compass. Preston shrugged. "Been here most of my life. You learn quick or you don't last long." "I have much to learn then." He glanced at her, a hint of admiration in his eyes. "You're stronger than you think, Olivia. Not many women could have delivered a baby alone in an abandoned cabin during a thunderstorm." "I had no choice," she said softly, looking down at Faith. That's usually when people discover what they are truly capable of. They crested a gentle rise and Preston pointed ahead. Clearwater. The town was larger than Olivia had expected, with a main street lined by wooden buildings, some boasting false fronts that made them appear grander than they were. A church steeple rose above the other structures, and horses were hitched at various posts along the street. People moved about their business, women shopping, men congregating outside the saloon, children playing a game of tag between buildings. "It's bigger than I imagined," Olivia said. "Grown some in recent years. Railroads talking about putting a spur line through, which would make it grow even more." Preston guided the wagon toward a two-story building with Clearwater Hotel painted across its facade. "Town council meets here. Mayor Bridger owns the place." He brought the wagon to a stop and jumped down, coming around to help Olivia descend. His hands were strong at her waist, lingering perhaps a moment longer than necessary before he released her. "I need to see the banker first," Preston said. "Mayor Bridger's usually in his office this time of day. Second door on the left when you enter. You're not coming with me?" Olivia asked, suddenly nervous. Preston's expression softened. "Thought you might prefer to handle this on your own. Show your independence." Olivia considered this, then nodded. "You're right, thank you. I'll be at the Mercantile when you're done. Take your time." He tipped his hat and headed down the street, his stride confident. Gathering her courage, Olivia adjusted Faith against her shoulder and entered the hotel. The interior was surprisingly elegant, with a polished wooden staircase and tasteful furnishings. A clerk directed her to Mayor Bridger's office, and she knocked tentatively on the indicated door. "Come in," called a jovial voice. Mayor Bridger proved to be a rotund man with mutton chop whiskers and a ready smile. He rose from behind his desk when Olivia entered, his eyebrows lifting in surprise. "Well now, who have we here?" "Olivia Zimmerman, sir, and this is my daughter, Faith." She stood straight despite her nervousness. "I understand Clearwater is in need of a teacher." Mayor Bridger's face brightened. "Indeed we are, Mrs. Zimmerman. Indeed we are. Please sit down." He gestured to a chair before his desk. "May I ask how you heard of our situation? We've advertised as far as St. Louis with no success." "Preston Abernathy mentioned it," Olivia explained, settling into the chair with Faith still cradled against her. "I'm staying at his ranch temporarily. I was a teacher in Pennsylvania before coming west." "Abernathy, eh?" The mayor's expression grew more interested. "Fine man. One of our most respected citizens, though he keeps to himself mostly." He leaned forward. "Do you have credentials, Mrs. Zimmerman?" "I did," Olivia said regretfully. "They were lost when our wagon train was attacked several weeks ago. I was separated from the group during the chaos." Mayor Bridger's face darkened. "Damn outlaws. Pardon my language, madam. Was it the Stockton gang? I don't know," Olivia admitted. "It happened at night. I barely escaped with my life." The mayor shook his head. "A terrible business. But to return to the matter at hand without credentials, it would be irregular to appoint you as teacher." Olivia's heart sank. "I understand, sir, but I assure you I am qualified. I taught for 3 years in Philadelphia before my marriage. I can demonstrate my knowledge in any subject you wish to test." Mayor Bridger studied her thoughtfully. "Tell me, Mrs. Zimmerman, why should Clearwater entrust its children's education to you?" The question was direct, challenging, but Olivia met his gaze steadily. "Because every child deserves the opportunity to learn, Mr. Bridger. Knowledge is the only true freedom in this world, freedom from ignorance, from poverty, from limitation. I believe that with all my heart, and I would dedicate myself to giving your town's children that freedom." A slow smile spread across the mayor's face. "Well said, Mrs. Zimmerman. Very well said indeed." He drummed his fingers on the desk. "The position pays $30 a month. The schoolhouse needs repairs, and the teachers' quarters attached to it are small, just 2 rooms, I'm afraid." "That would be more than sufficient," Olivia replied, hope rising within her. "There's a school board meeting tomorrow evening," Mayor Bridger continued. "I'd like you to attend, meet the other board members. If they approve, and I suspect they will, you could start as soon as the schoolhouse is made habitable." "How long might that take? A week, perhaps 2. The mayor stood, extending his hand. "Welcome to Clearwater, Mrs. Zimmerman. Provisionally, of course, pending the board's approval." Olivia rose as well, shifting Faith to her left arm so she could shake his hand. "Thank you, Mr. Bridger. You won't regret giving me this opportunity." Outside the hotel, Olivia paused to take a deep breath, excitement bubbling within her. A teaching position, a place to live, a chance to build a new life for herself and Faith. It was more than she had dared hope for. She found Preston at the Mercantile as promised, selecting supplies while conversing with the proprietor. His face brightened when he saw her. "How did it go?" he asked, excusing himself from the shopkeeper. "Wonderfully," Olivia replied, unable to keep the smile from her face. "Mayor Bridger wants me to meet the school board tomorrow evening, but he seemed positive they'll approve my appointment." Preston's answering smile was genuine. "That's excellent news. I could start within 2 weeks, once they repair the schoolhouse and teachers' quarters." Olivia bounced Faith gently as she began to fuss. "I can't thank you enough for telling me about the position." "Happy to help." Preston hesitated. "Will you stay at the ranch until the school is ready?" "You're welcome to, of course." Relief washed over her. "If it wouldn't be an imposition, I'd be glad to continue helping Martha with the household duties in exchange. No imposition at all." His eyes lingered on her face before he turned back to his shopping. "Do you need anything while we're here? For yourself or Faith?" Olivia began to decline automatically, then reconsidered. She had some money saved, carefully hidden in the lining of her dress. The supplies she'd salvaged from the wagon train were minimal. Perhaps some fabric for baby clothes, she admitted. And thread. Preston nodded. Mr. Turner here has the finest selection in 3 counties, don't you, Turner? The shopkeeper, a thin man with spectacles perched on his nose, nodded enthusiastically. Indeed, Mr. Abernathy. Just got a shipment of calicos that would make lovely baby garments. Olivia selected several yards of soft fabric in cheerful patterns, along with thread, buttons, and a packet of needles. Preston added these to his own purchases without comment, and Olivia made a mental note to reimburse him later. As they prepared to leave the store, the door opened and a tall man in a marshal's badge entered, his expression grim. Abernathy, he greeted Preston with a nod before tipping his hat to Olivia. Madam, Marshal Dawson, Preston returned. Everything all right? The marshal glanced at Olivia, then back to Preston. Got word from up north. Stockton and his men hit another ranch yesterday, Davison Place. Preston's face hardened. Bad, worst yet. The marshal's eyes flicked to Faith. Perhaps not a conversation for the lady's ears. Mrs. Zimmerman has already faced her share of dangers, Preston replied. But I take your meaning. He turned to Olivia. Would you mind waiting by the wagon? I won't be long. Olivia nodded, understanding his desire to shield her from disturbing details. As she left the store, she heard the marshal say something about a posse forming. The knowledge that violence was drawing nearer sent a chill through her despite the warm day. At the wagon, she busied herself with settling Faith in the makeshift carrier Preston had fashioned. The town continued its normal activities around her, a woman hanging laundry, 2 old men playing checkers outside the barber shop, a group of children chasing a hoop down the street. It was hard to believe danger lurked beyond this peaceful scene. Preston emerged from the store after about 10 minutes, his expression troubled as he loaded their purchases into the wagon. Everything all right? Olivia asked cautiously. He helped her up to the seat before answering. Stockton's gang is moving closer. Marshall's organizing men to track them. Will you join them? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Preston's hands paused on the reins. Not unless they come near Clearwater. He glanced at her. I don't leave those under my protection vulnerable. The statement warmed her even as she protested. I don't want to be a burden on you, Preston. You've already done so much. It's no burden. He set the wagon in motion, guiding the horses back toward the main road out of town. Actually, having you and Faith at the ranch has been. He seemed to search for the right word. Pleasant. Olivia smiled. Martha seems pleased to have a baby to fuss over. Not just Martha, Preston said quietly, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. They traveled in companionable silence for a time, each lost in their own thoughts. About halfway back to the ranch, Preston suddenly pulled the wagon to a stop, his posture alert. What is it? Olivia asked, instantly concerned. Preston pointed to a plume of dark smoke rising in the distance. Fire, and it's coming from the direction of the ranch. Without another word, he slapped the reins against the horses' backs, urging them into a gallop. Olivia clutched Faith tightly as the wagon bounced violently over the rough terrain. Preston's face set in a grim mask as he pushed the team harder than was safe. As they crested the final hill overlooking the AA, Olivia gasped in horror. The barn was engulfed in flames, thick black smoke billowing skyward. Even from this distance, they could hear the frightened whinnies of horses. Preston brought the wagon to a halt near the house, which thankfully remained untouched by the fire. Before the wheels had fully stopped, he was leaping down, shouting Martha's name. The housekeeper emerged from the house, her face smudged with soot. They're gone, she called. 4 men on horseback. set the barn alight, and ran off heading west when they saw me with the shotgun. Preston was already running toward the burning structure. The horses got most out, two still inside. Without hesitation, Preston disappeared into the smoke-filled barn. Olivia handed Faith to Martha and ran after him, ignoring the older woman's shout of protest. The heat was overwhelming as she entered the barn, the air thick with smoke that burned her lungs and made her eyes water. Through the haze, she could see Preston struggling with a terrified horse, trying to lead it toward the door while avoiding falling timbers. "Preston," she called, coughing as smoke filled her throat. He turned, his expression changing from determination to alarm when he saw her. "Get out," he shouted. "It's not safe." Instead, Olivia moved toward the second horse, still trapped in its stall. The animal was rearing in panic, its eyes wild with fear. Drawing on courage she didn't know she possessed, Olivia approached the stall, speaking in a soothing voice despite her terror. "Easy," she murmured, reaching for the halter hanging beside the stall. "Easy, girl." Somehow, her calm demeanor penetrated the horse's fear. It stopped rearing, trembling violently but allowing Olivia to slip the halter over its head. With gentle urgency, she led the animal toward the door, where Preston had successfully guided the other horse. "Go," he shouted as a burning beam crashed down behind them. They burst from the barn just as the roof began to collapse, leading the terrified horses to safety. Once they had secured the animals with the others in the corral, Preston turned to Olivia, his face blackened with soot, his expression a mix of anger and admiration. "That was the bravest and most foolish thing I've ever seen," he said, his voice rough from smoke. Before Olivia could respond, he pulled her against him in a fierce embrace. For a moment, she stiffened in surprise, then relaxed into his arms, her own coming up to circle his waist. They stood that way for several heartbeats, the heat of the burning barn washing over them, their hearts pounding in shared fear and relief. When they separated, Martha was standing nearby, Faith still cradled in her arms, a knowing expression on her face. "You two all right?" she asked. Preston nodded, his eyes not leaving Olivia's face. "Thanks to Mrs. Zimmerman's courage." "It was nothing," Olivia demurred. "I couldn't let the horses perish." "Most women would have stayed safely away," Preston said. "You're not most women, Olivia Zimmerman." Something in his tone made her cheeks warm and she looked away, embarrassed by his praise and the intensity of his gaze. "Was it them?" she asked, changing the subject. "The Stockton gang," Preston's expression darkened. "Most likely. Martha, did you recognize any of them?" The housekeeper shook her head. "Didn't get a good look. They wore bandanas over their faces, but one had a distinctive dun horse with a white blaze." "Sounds like Hank Stockton's mount," Preston said grimly. "We should alert Marshal Dawson." "Already sent Tommy Peterson," Martha replied. "He was delivering eggs when it happened. Told him to ride for the marshal fast as he could." Preston nodded his approval, then surveyed the remains of the barn with a heavy sigh. "At least we didn't lose any animals. The barn can be rebuilt." "And thank the Lord they didn't try for the house," Martha added, "though I reckon my shotgun persuaded them against it." Olivia felt a surge of admiration for the older woman's courage. "You faced them alone," Martha sniffed. "Been facing down trouble since before you were born, girl." "Takes more than a few cowardly outlaws to scare me." She handed Faith back to Olivia. "This little one slept through the whole ordeal. Bless her heart." The rest of the day was spent securing the property and tending to the frightened animals. Preston moved them all into the smaller corral nearest the house, where they could be watched more easily. He also positioned lanterns at strategic points around the property to eliminate shadows where intruders might hide. By nightfall, Marshal Dawson had arrived with 2 deputies. They listened to Martha's account, examined the remains of the barn, and followed the outlaw's trail until it disappeared into rocky terrain where tracks were impossible to find. "They're testing defenses," the marshal explained as they gathered in Preston's kitchen. "Hitting isolated places, seeing which are vulnerable." "Why burn the barn?" Olivia asked. "Why not just steal the horses?" "Intimidation," Preston answered before the marshal could. "They want people scared. Scared folks make mistakes, don't fight back as effectively." Marshal Dawson nodded. "Exactly, and they're getting bolder. Started with remote homesteads, now they're hitting established ranches." He looked at Preston seriously. "You should consider moving into town until we catch them, all of you." Preston shook his head firmly. "This is my home. I won't be driven from it by criminals." "Figured you'd say that," the marshal sighed. "At least keep weapons loaded and ready, and maybe take turns keeping watch at night." "Already planned to," Preston assured him. After the lawman departed, promising to return the next day with more men to help track the gang, Preston checked all the doors and windows, placing a loaded rifle near each entry point. Olivia put Faith down for the night, then joined him and Martha in the kitchen where they discussed sleeping arrangements. "I'll take first watch," Preston said. "Martha, you get some rest. I'll wake you in 4 hours." "What about me?" Olivia asked. "I can take a watch too." Preston began to protest, but Martha interrupted him. "Girl's right, Preston. 3 of us can each take a shorter watch. Better for everyone." After some argument, Preston reluctantly agreed. Martha would sleep first, then take the pre-dawn watch. Olivia would watch during the middle of the night, with Preston taking the first shift. As Martha retired to her room, Preston showed Olivia how to use the shotgun, how to hold it, aim, and fire. Her hands trembled slightly as she hefted the weapon's weight. "I've never fired a gun before," she admitted. "Hope you won't need it tonight," Preston replied. "But it's better to be prepared." Their fingers brushed as he adjusted her grip on the shotgun, and Olivia felt that now familiar warmth spread through her at his touch. When she looked up, his eyes were on her face, their expression impossible to read in the dim lamplight. "You should try to sleep," he said softly. "I'll wake you at midnight." Olivia nodded and returned to her room, checking on Faith before lying down fully clothed on the bed. Despite her exhaustion, sleep eluded her. Her mind kept returning to the moment Preston had embraced her after they escaped the burning barn, the strength of his arms around her, the solid beat of his heart against her cheek, the strange sense of rightness she had felt there. It had been over a year since John's death, a year of grief and struggle and fear. She had never expected to feel anything for another man, didn't want to if she was honest with herself. Love brought vulnerability, and vulnerability brought pain. Yet here she was, lying awake thinking about a man she had known barely 2 weeks. A man who had saved her daughter's life, who had offered shelter and protection without asking anything in return, who looked at her as if she were something precious rather than a burden. When Preston knocked softly on her door at midnight, Olivia was still awake. She opened it to find him standing in the hallway, rifle in hand, his expression weary but alert. "All quiet," she whispered, mindful of Faith sleeping nearby. He nodded. "No sign of trouble. Keep the shotgun close, and don't hesitate to shout if you see or hear anything suspicious." "I won't," she promised. Preston hesitated, then reached out to touch her cheek briefly, the gesture so gentle it brought unexpected tears to her eyes. "Be careful, Olivia." "You too," she managed to say past the sudden tightness in her throat. As he disappeared into his room, Olivia took up position in the kitchen, where windows offered views of both the front and back of the house. The shotgun lay across her lap, heavy and unfamiliar. Outside, the night was quiet except for the occasional lowing of cattle in the distant pasture and the soft nickering of horses in the corral. Time passed slowly. To keep herself awake, Olivia thought about the schoolhouse in Clearwater, mentally arranging desks and planning lessons. She imagined Faith growing up there, playing with other children, safe and happy. And unbidden, her mind added Preston to these domestic scenes, reading by the fire in the evenings, teaching Faith to ride, his smile warming the simple teacher's quarters into a home. The fantasy was so vivid it startled her. She was getting ahead of herself, building castles in the air based on a few kind gestures and moments of connection. Preston had offered help to a woman in distress. It didn't mean he harbored deeper feelings for her. Yet the way he had looked at her touched her. A sound outside jerked Olivia from her reverie, a soft thud, as if something had been dropped or set down carefully. She froze, listening intently. For several long moments there was nothing. Then came the unmistakable creak of a floorboard on the front porch. Heart pounding, Olivia raised the shotgun and moved silently to position herself beside the front door, just as Preston had instructed. The door handle turned slowly, almost imperceptibly. Whoever was outside was trying to enter silently. Drawing a deep breath, Olivia called out in a voice steadier than she felt, "I have a shotgun aimed at this door. Identify yourself or I'll fire." The handle stopped moving. A tense silence followed, then a low chuckle from the other side of the door. "Feisty one, ain't she?" a rough voice said, not to her but to someone else outside. "Abernathy's got himself a wildcat." Olivia's blood ran cold. She took a step backward, raising her voice. "Preston, intruders." The response was immediate. Preston's door flew open and he emerged with rifle raised, moving quickly but quietly to her side. "How many?" he whispered. "At least two," she breathed back. "At the front door." No sooner had she spoken than a window shattered in the sitting room, followed by the distinctive thud of something heavy landing on the wooden floor. A moment later, an orange glow began to spread as flames licked up the curtains. "Fire!" Martha's voice called from her room. "They've thrown a torch." Preston reacted instantly, firing his rifle through the front door before kicking it open. A cry of pain told Olivia his shot had found its mark. Outside, dark shapes scattered as Preston fired again. "Martha, get Faith," he shouted. "Olivia, help me put out this fire before it spreads." While Preston continued firing at the retreating outlaws, Olivia grabbed a heavy blanket from the sofa and threw it over the flames, beating at them desperately. Martha appeared with a bucket of water, which she threw onto the burning curtains. Between them, they managed to extinguish the fire before it could spread beyond the sitting room. Outside, the sound of gunfire had stopped. Preston stood in the doorway, rifle ready, scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. "I think they're gone," he said after a long moment. "But they might circle back." Martha appeared with Faith in her arms, the baby remarkably still asleep despite the chaos. "Back room secure, no windows broken. We should move there," Preston decided. "More defensible if they return." For the remainder of the night, they huddled in Martha's small bedroom at the back of the house, the door barricaded with a heavy dresser. Preston kept watch at the room's single window while Olivia and Martha dozed fitfully, Faith nestled between them on the bed. Dawn brought relief in the form of Marshal Dawson and 6 armed men, responding to the report from the previous day. They found blood on the porch where Preston's shot had struck one of the attackers and more blood leading away from the house. "You wounded at least one of them," the marshal confirmed. "We'll follow the trail. Might lead us to their camp if we're lucky." Before departing with his posse, Marshal Dawson pulled Preston aside. Olivia couldn't hear their conversation, but Preston's face grew increasingly troubled as they spoke. When the lawman had ridden away, he returned to where Olivia and Martha were cleaning up the damaged sitting room. "Marshal thinks we should all go to town," he said without preamble. "Stockton's making this personal now. 2 attacks in 24 hours means he's targeted the double as specifically." "But why?" Olivia asked. "What have you done to anger him?" Preston's jaw tightened. 5 years ago, I testified against his brother, got him hanged for murder in Santa Fe. He ran a hand through his hair. Didn't connect Hank Stockton to Tom until now. They don't share a last name. Tom used their mother's name, Miller. Martha made a disgusted sound. So this is revenge. Appears so. Preston looked at Olivia, his expression grave. Which means you and Faith are in danger simply by association with me. I can't ask you to stay here. Where would we go? Olivia asked. Clearwater has a decent hotel. You'd be safer there until this is resolved. Olivia considered this, looking around the room that had begun to feel like home despite the short time she'd spent here. The thought of leaving, of Preston facing this threat alone, filled her with dread. What about you? She asked. Will you go to town too? Preston shook his head. Can't abandon the ranch. The cattle need tending, and I won't let Stockton drive me from my home. Then I'm staying too, Olivia said firmly. We're staying. Olivia, be reasonable. I am being reasonable, she interrupted. How is a hotel in town any safer? If these men are determined enough to attack your ranch twice, what's to stop them from attacking the hotel? Preston had no immediate answer for that. Besides, Olivia continued, you saved Faith's life. You've protected us, sheltered us. I won't repay that by leaving you to face this danger alone. Martha nodded approvingly. Girl's got a point, Preston, and I'm too old and too ornery to be running off to town at the first sign of trouble. Preston looked between the two women, exasperation clear on his face. You're both impossible. So we're agreed, Martha said with satisfaction. We stay and fight. But we take precautions, Preston insisted. No one goes anywhere alone. We keep weapons close at all times, and at the first sign of real trouble, you two take Faith and go for help. No arguments. Olivia and Martha exchanged glances, then nodded their agreement. The next several days passed in tense vigilance. Preston began rebuilding the barn with help from neighboring ranchers who had heard about the attacks. The community's response was heartening, men arriving with tools and lumber, women bringing food to feed the workers. It reminded Olivia that even in this harsh land, people looked out for one another. Throughout this time, Olivia found her admiration for Preston growing. He worked tirelessly from dawn until dusk, coordinating the rebuilding efforts while still maintaining regular ranch operations and security measures. Yet he always found time to check on Faith, to ask Olivia about her preparations for teaching, to play his guitar softly in the evenings when the day's work was done. 4 days after the attack, Olivia attended the school board meeting in Clearwater, accompanied by Preston. The meeting went even better than she had hoped, with the board unanimously approving her appointment based on Mayor Bridger's recommendation, and her own articulate presentation of her qualifications and teaching philosophy. When can you start? Asked Mrs. Peterson, the banker's wife and head of the school board. The mayor mentioned the schoolhouse needs repairs, Olivia replied. Indeed it does, confirmed Mr. Collins, the town blacksmith and another board member, but we've been making progress. Should be ready within 10 days, 2 weeks at most. Olivia glanced at Preston, who sat quietly at the back of the room. Their eyes met briefly, and she saw something like resignation in his gaze. That would be perfect, she told the board. It gives me time to prepare materials and lesson plans. As they rode back to the ranch that evening, Preston was unusually quiet. The rebuilt barn was taking shape nicely, its framework already complete thanks to the community's help. In the fading light, the ranch looked peaceful, showing few signs of the violence it had recently endured. You'll be a wonderful teacher, Preston said finally as he helped Olivia down from the wagon. The children of Clearwater are fortunate. Thank you, she replied, searching his face. Preston, is something troubling you? He hesitated, then offered a small smile that didn't reach his eyes. Just thinking about changes. They're inevitable, I suppose. Before Olivia could question him further, Martha appeared at the door, Faith in her arms. "How'd it go?" she called. "They approved my appointment," Olivia replied, moving toward the house. "The school should be ready in about 2 weeks." "That's wonderful news," Martha exclaimed, handing Faith to Olivia. "Calls for a celebration. I've made apple pie." The evening passed pleasantly enough, though Preston remained subdued despite Martha's attempts to draw him into conversation. After dinner, he excused himself to check on the animals, leaving Olivia and Martha to clean up. "He's taking it hard," Martha observed as they washed dishes. "Taking what hard?" Olivia asked, though she suspected she knew. Martha gave her a knowing look. "You leaving, of course. Man's fallen in love with you, clear as day." Olivia nearly dropped the plate she was drying. "Martha, that's ridiculous. Preston has simply been kind to a woman in need." "Is that what you think?" Martha shook her head. "Girl, I've known that man since he was knee-high to a grasshopper. Never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you, and at that baby of yours." Warmth bloomed in Olivia's chest, along with a flutter of anxiety. "Even if that were true, I haven't." "Haven't what? Fallen for him too?" Martha snorted. "Could have fooled me." Olivia set down her dish towel, unable to continue the pretense. "It's complicated, Martha." "Love usually is," the older woman replied. "Doesn't make it any less worthwhile." Later that night, unable to sleep, Olivia stepped onto the porch for some fresh air. To her surprise, Preston was already there, seated on the bench where he often played his guitar, though the instrument was absent tonight. He looked up at her approach, his expression softening. "Faith asleep?" he asked as Olivia sat beside him. She nodded. "Finally, she's been fussy this evening." "Growing pains, maybe," Preston suggested. "Martha says she's getting bigger every day." They sat in companionable silence for a time, gazing at the stars scattered across the velvet sky. The night was peaceful, with only the gentle lowing of cattle and the chirp of crickets disturbing the quiet. "I never thanked you properly," Olivia said at last, "for everything you've done for us." Preston shook his head. "No thanks needed." "Nevertheless, you have mine." She turned to face him. "Preston, about the teaching position. You'll be wonderful at it," he said quickly. "Don't worry." "I'm not worried about that." Olivia took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "I'm worried about leaving here, about leaving you." The words hung in the air between them. Preston went very still, his eyes searching her face in the moonlight. "Martha says you've developed feelings for me," Olivia continued, her heart pounding. "Is that true?" For a moment she thought he might deny it. Then slowly he nodded. "Yes," he said simply. "I have." "When did you know?" A small smile touched his lips. "When I found you in that cabin, I admired your courage. When Faith cried for the first time in my arms, I felt connected to you both somehow. But I think I knew for certain when you ran into that burning barn to save my horse." He shook his head in wonder. "No one's ever done anything like that for me." Olivia's throat tightened with emotion. "I couldn't let you face that danger alone." "That's just it," Preston said softly. "You could have. Most would have. But you didn't." He reached out tentatively, his hand covering hers where it rested on the bench between them. "I understand that you're starting a new life in Clearwater. I don't expect anything from you, Olivia, but I wanted you to know before you left that you and Faith have come to mean a great deal to me." Olivia turned her hand beneath his, their fingers intertwining naturally. "What if we didn't have to leave?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Preston's eyes widened slightly. "What do you mean?" "I could teach in Clearwater and still live here," she explained. "It's not so far. I could ride in for school days and return in the evenings." She hesitated. "If you wanted us to stay." "If I wanted," Preston broke off, shaking his head in disbelief. "Olivia, nothing would make me happier. But are you sure? This life isn't easy, and with Stockton still out there." "Life is never without risks," Olivia said, "but some things are worth risking everything for." She squeezed his hand. I've lost someone I loved before. It made me afraid to open my heart again. But your kindness, your strength, your gentle way with faith, you've made me believe that perhaps second chances are possible." Preston raised his free hand to her cheek, his touch feather light. "Olivia," he breathed, her name a prayer on his lips. She leaned into his touch, closing her eyes briefly. "I'm not ready to put a name to what I feel yet," she admitted, "but I know I'm not ready to leave you either." "That's enough for me," Preston assured her. "We have time." Slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, he leaned forward. Olivia met him halfway, their lips meeting in a kiss that was gentle yet filled with promise. His hand moved from her cheek to the back of her neck, drawing her closer as the kiss deepened, speaking all the words they weren't yet ready to say aloud. When they separated, both slightly breathless, Preston rested his forehead against hers. "Stay," he whispered. "Both of you. We'll make it work somehow." "We will," Olivia agreed, feeling truly at peace for the first time in more than a year. A sudden cry from inside the house broke the moment Faith had awakened. Olivia smiled ruefully. "Duty calls." "Go to her," Preston said, releasing her hand reluctantly. "I'll be here." The simple promise held such weight that Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. She nodded, unable to speak, and rose to attend to her daughter. Inside, as she lifted Faith from her cradle, soothing her with gentle words and rocking motions, Olivia looked out the window to where Preston still sat on the porch, gazing up at the stars. In that moment, despite all the uncertainty that still surrounded them, Stockton's threat, the challenges of her new teaching position, the complexity of building a relationship while caring for an infant, Olivia felt something she had thought lost forever: hope for the future. The following days brought significant changes. Word arrived from Marshal Dawson that the Stockton gang had been tracked to their hideout in the foothills. In the ensuing gunfight, Hank Stockton and 2 of his men had been killed, while 3 others were captured. The territory would be safer now, though Preston maintained their vigilant security measures, unwilling to take chances with Olivia and Faith's safety. As promised, Olivia began making daily trips to Clearwater to prepare the schoolhouse for classes. Preston insisted on accompanying her, using the opportunity to conduct business in town while she worked. Often, they would make an outing of it, taking lunch at the hotel restaurant or visiting the mercantile for supplies. The people of Clearwater quickly grew accustomed to seeing them together. Faith cradled in Olivia's arms or, increasingly often, carried proudly by Preston. If anyone found it unusual that the town's new teacher was living at the Abernathy Ranch rather than in the teacher's quarters, they kept such thoughts to themselves. 2 weeks after the school board meeting, Olivia stood at the front of the freshly repaired schoolhouse, greeting her students on their first day of classes. 28 children ranging in age from 6 to 16 filed in, regarding their new teacher with curiosity and, in some cases, skepticism. "Good morning," Olivia said warmly when they had all found seats. "I'm Mrs. Zimmerman, and I'm honored to be your teacher." A small boy in the front row raised his hand. "Is it true you helped Mr. Abernathy fight off the Stockton gang?" he asked, eyes wide with excitement. Olivia suppressed a smile. News traveled fast in small communities. "Mr. Abernathy did most of the fighting," she corrected gently. "I simply helped protect his home." "Pa says you ran into a burning barn to save a horse," a girl in the back called out. "That true?" "That's enough questions about Mrs. Zimmerman's personal affairs," Olivia said firmly, though not unkindly. "We're here to learn. Now, let's start with introductions, shall we?" By the end of that first day, Olivia knew she had made the right decision. Teaching filled her with purpose and satisfaction. Yet the knowledge that Preston would be waiting to take her and Faith home made the day complete in a way she hadn't experienced since losing John. As autumn progressed into winter, life settled into a comfortable routine. Preston completed the barn rebuilding with help from neighbors, and even expanded it to accommodate more horses. Olivia's reputation as a dedicated and effective teacher grew, with parents reporting their children's newfound enthusiasm for learning. Faith thrived in the care of her mother, Preston, and Martha, reaching milestones that Olivia carefully recorded in a journal. Her first real smile, the first time she rolled over, the day she reached for Preston's beard, fascination on her tiny face. One crisp December evening, as Olivia sat on the porch wrapped in a thick blanket, Faith sleeping against her chest, Preston joined her, carrying 2 steaming mugs of coffee. He handed one to Olivia before sitting beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "Cold night," he observed, his breath fogging in the winter air. "Might snow before morning." Olivia sipped her coffee gratefully, the warmth spreading through her. "Martha says it's unusual to get snow this early. It happens sometimes." Preston's arm slipped around her shoulders, drawing her against his side. They had grown increasingly comfortable with such gestures of affection over the past months, though they had not yet defined their relationship in words. They sat in companionable silence for a time, watching as the first delicate snowflakes began to drift down from the darkened sky. "I've been thinking," Preston said eventually. "MMM," Olivia murmured, feeling drowsy and content in his embrace. "About us, about Faith, about the future." He shifted slightly to look at her, his expression serious in the lantern light spilling from the window. "I know we agreed to take things slowly, and I've respected that, but I find myself wanting more, Olivia." Olivia's heart quickened. "What are you saying, Preston?" He set his coffee mug aside and took her free hand in his. "I'm saying that I love you, both of you." His eyes moved briefly to Faith's sleeping form. "I'm saying that I want us to be a real family if you'll have me." Tears pricked at Olivia's eyes. "Are you proposing, Mr. Abernathy?" she asked, trying for lightness despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm her. "I believe I am, Mrs. Zimmerman." His smile was tender, his eyes never leaving hers. "Will you marry me, Olivia? Let me be a father to Faith, build a life with me here." The question hung in the snow-filled air between them. Olivia thought of the journey that had brought her here, the pain of losing John, the terror of giving birth alone, the miracle of Preston's arrival at that precise moment. She thought of Faith's silent entry into the world, and how Preston's gentle encouragement had drawn forth her first cry. She thought of burning barns and night watches and quiet evenings by the fire. And she thought of the future Faith growing strong and sure under Preston's guidance, perhaps siblings joining her in time, a life built on mutual respect and deepening love. "Yes," she said simply, her voice steady despite the tears now flowing freely. "Yes, I'll marry you, Preston." His answering smile was radiant as he leaned forward to kiss her, one hand cradling the back of her head, the other gently covering Faith where she slept against Olivia's chest, as if embracing them both. When they parted, Preston reached into his pocket and withdrew a small, worn velvet box. "This was my mother's," he explained as he opened it to reveal a simple gold band set with a single pearl. "It's not fancy, but it's perfect," Olivia interrupted, extending her hand so he could slip the ring onto her finger. It fit as if made for her. Preston kissed her again, then rested his forehead against hers. "When?" he asked. "Spring? Summer?" Olivia smiled. "Christmas," she said decisively. "I don't want to wait any longer than necessary. Christmas it is," Preston agreed, his joy evident in every line of his face. "I'll speak to the minister tomorrow." Faith chose that moment to stir, her eyes blinking open to gaze up at them both. To Olivia's delight, the baby's face broke into a wide, gummy smile. "I think she approves," Preston said, gently stroking Faith's cheek with one finger. "Of course she does," Olivia replied. "She's known all along that you were meant to be her father." 3 weeks later, on Christmas morning, Olivia stood before the altar of Clearwater's small church, Faith in Martha's arms beside her, as she pledged herself to Preston in marriage. The church was filled with townspeople and neighboring ranchers, all come to witness the union of their teacher to the respected rancher who had saved her and her child. As Preston slipped the gold band onto her finger to join her engagement ring, his hands steady and sure, Olivia felt the final pieces of her heart knit together. The grief for John would always be a part of her, but it no longer defined her. Here, with Preston and Faith and the community they had made their own, she had found a new beginning. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the minister declared. "You may kiss your bride." Preston's kiss was tender yet filled with promise, a commitment to the life they would build together. When they turned to face the congregation, Faith reached out from Martha's arms, clearly wanting to be part of the moment. Preston lifted her with practiced ease, settling her between himself and Olivia as they walked back down the aisle together, a family united at last. The celebration that followed at the Double a Ranch was joyous and boisterous, with music and dancing continuing well into the evening. As the festivities wound down, Preston found Olivia standing on the porch, watching the stars emerge in the winter sky. "Happy, Mrs. Abernathy?" he asked, coming to stand beside her. The name sent a thrill through her. "Very," she assured him, leaning into his embrace. "Though I'm not sure the children will adapt to calling me that instead of Mrs. Zimmerman." Preston chuckled. "They'll manage. Children are adaptable." His expression grew more serious. "Speaking of children," Olivia looked up at him. "Yes, I've been thinking," he said carefully. "About Faith, about making it official," understanding dawned. "You want to adopt her legally." Preston nodded. "If you're agreeable." "I know she'll always be John's daughter by blood, and I would never seek to erase his memory. But I want her to have my name, to be my daughter in every way that matters." Tears welled in Olivia's eyes at his thoughtfulness. "John would have wanted that for her," she said softly. "A father to guide her, to love her. Yes, Preston, I would be honored for you to adopt Faith." His arms tightened around her. "Thank you," he whispered against her hair. "There's something else," Olivia said after a moment, drawing back slightly to look up at him. "Something I've been waiting for the right moment to tell you." Preston's eyebrows lifted in question. "Faith is going to have a sibling," Olivia said, taking his hand and placing it gently on her still flat stomach. "In about 7 months." For a moment, Preston stared at her in disbelief. Then, with a whoop of joy that surely carried all the way to Clearwater, he lifted her off her feet, spinning her in a circle before setting her down carefully. "A baby," he said, wonder in his voice. "Our baby." Olivia nodded, laughing at his exuberance. "Our family is growing, Mr. Abernathy." Preston knelt suddenly, pressing a gentle kiss to her abdomen through her dress. "Hello, little one," he said softly. "Your pa can't wait to meet you." As he rose, pulling Olivia back into his arms, she was struck by how far they had come from that stormy night in the abandoned homestead. Faith had entered the world in silence, but her cry, drawn forth by Preston's gentle encouragement, had been the beginning of this journey that had brought them all to where they belonged, together. The following summer, as wildflowers painted the Arizona landscape in vibrant hues, Olivia gave birth to a son. Unlike Faith's traumatic entry into the world, Thomas Preston Abernathy arrived with ease, his lusty cry filling the bedroom of their ranch house immediately. "He has your lungs," Olivia told Preston as he held his son for the first time, tears shimmering in his eyes. "And your spirit," Preston replied, gazing down at the red-faced infant with adoration. Faith, now 18 months old and steady on her feet, peered curiously at her brother from Martha's arms. "Baby," she said clearly, one of the dozen words now in her growing vocabulary. "That's right, sweetheart," Olivia confirmed. "Your baby brother." Preston settled on the bed beside Olivia, arranging Thomas in one arm so he could draw Faith close with the other. "Our family," he said simply, the words carrying all the emotion he couldn't express. Olivia looked at the four of them together, Preston, Faith, newborn Thomas, and herself, and felt complete in a way she had once thought impossible after losing John. Life had taken her on an unexpected journey, from tragedy to redemption, from silence to joy. And it had all begun with a baby born in silence and a cowboy's gentle plea. "Cry, little one, I'm here to hear it."